Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and what an episode of Dynamite it was. Now you might be wondering, if you haven't watched Dynamite, why I'm just so delighted to be talking about this show today. We'll get to that later on, but so many things happened on Dynamite. It was a really eventful one. You know, we got a new challenger for the AEW World Championship, the Women's Champion came back, Jay the Snake got a snake involved, and and someone smashed a block of ice into someone else's body, and various other things happened. I can't calm down. What a main event. Anyway, right, before all that, let's talk about how good the show was. And there's only one way to find out how good the show was, and that's by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We start the show with Cody versus Joey Janela, and immediately the show looks different. We've got pyro, we've got, you know, more wrestlers in attendance to act as the crowd. We've got Daily's Place all set up and everything. It looks good. It looks good. You could argue about whether they should be doing it on this scale and running shows live once again, despite the whole lockdown and everything. But in terms of just looking at it as a wrestling show, it definitely improved things. And the match starts off quite fast-paced, quite a lot of roll-ups, quite back and forth, but I'm quite worried watching this that it's a little bit too predictable. Obviously, Cody's going into the final of the TNT Championship tournament, and he's probably going to be Janela here, isn't he? But commentary do a good job of hyping up how Cody is the only person in this match with anything to lose, really. I like Janela's inventiveness in this match. I enjoy how at one stage Cody goes for the crossroads, so Janela just slips out of it and yanks Cody's head forwards, and Cody's neck lands on the middle rope. That was a cool little counter to the crossroads. Cody's got inventiveness for days as well. He does a disaster kick to the outside onto the ramp, and then a moonsault off the ramp to the floor. And yeah, they do a good job of mixing things up and keeping you guessing when you're watching this match. Towards the end, Janela just takes Cody's head off with a huge lariat, but Cody manages to reverse the momentum by springing up to the top rope and leaping off with a Cody cutter, which only gets two. Both men fight back to their feet, they're exchanging strikes backwards and forwards, and then Cody's a bit rocked, he's a bit woozy, but then Janela turns away and Cody was just playing a little bit of possum, grabs him, instant crossroads, and Cody Rhodes picks up the win. This wasn't the smoothest match out there, and it wasn't the most intense, but they did a good job of kind of manufacturing an intensity when there wasn't really any there in terms of storyline. And of course, this match's strongest quality, as I mentioned, was its inventiveness. There were a lot of unique little spots here to keep the crowd guessing. I'm going to give it a B+ grade. Good start to the show. Now let's see what came next. Next up, Nyla Rose is on the stage with Tony Schiavone, and it's good to see her back. It's good to see a lot of wrestlers trickle their way back into the promotion. Hopefully once things return to normal, we'll see more and more wrestlers that we haven't seen for a while spring up in these different promotions. Well, we might see promotions that we haven't seen in a while spring up again, which would be nice. Tony Schiavone is interviewing Nyla, and she asks him who is the most dominant force in the AEW women's division, and Tony's about to answer, and then she cuts him off like The Rock, but instead of saying, "It doesn't matter," she just goes, wrong. Tony might have been about to say you, Nyla. Nyla then has a match in the ring. Her opponent is Kenzie Paige, who I'm not familiar with, but who apparently is only 18 years old. What a massive opportunity for her. Can she pull out the win? No, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't go that well, does it? Nyla absolutely runs through Paige. Big swanton bomb off the top for a 2 count. Well, a deliberate 2 count. She pulls Paige's shoulders off the canvas and then drops her with 3 consecutive power bombs to pick up the easy victory. I'm going to give this a C+ grade. It was a squash match. It was a decent one. We didn't get to see much of Kenzie Paige. Hopefully she comes back in the near future. But I will say that she did seem like a good seller. She was really inspiring sympathy through this beating that she received from Nyla Rose. And we get a hint of possible future matches to come, as while Nyla celebrates, we see Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander in the front row making angry, disapproving faces. Next up, we get a pre-recorded video with MJF, who cuts a promo talking about how young he is. He's only 24, it makes me sick, and how he's coming back from the most devastating injury ever, which was when, you know, he cut himself shaving. And he's just detestable, isn't he? MJF stands up from the chair he was on. Some sort of lackey or stagehand comes in and takes the chair away. Someone else comes in, replaces it with a big throne, and MJF says he's going to sit in the throne when he returns to action. We then get a similar video from Shawn Spears, who just rips into Cody, as he often does. Shawn Spears' character in AEW is basically loves a bit of gambling at ringside, beats up jobbers quite a lot, hates Cody Rhodes still with a passion. Spears criticizes Cody for not throwing the towel in during Dustin's match with Lance Archer, saying you should have been able to save your brother Cody. Come on now, Cody. Cody! We cut to ringside and now Tony Schiavone is there with both of them, with MJF and Shawn Spears, who've been really good friends since the lockdown era started, haven't they? They've been having banter at ringside, they've been singing along to Jericho's theme with Sammy Guevara, they've been creating odds for matches and putting money on, and it's looked like the best little time. MJF and Shawn Spears compliment each other during this interview and rip into Tony, poor Tony, and then Tony gets a measure of revenge because he's like, oh, just hearing from Tony Khan that it's going to be MJF versus Jungle Boy at Double or Nothing, which gets a big spit take from MJF. He's not happy about that, but I think I'm looking forward to that match. This gets a B grade, entertaining stuff, a couple of nice little videos from Spears and MJF, and then of course the interview at ringside. Not much more to talk about, but I am, as I mentioned, looking forward to that Double or Nothing match. Next up, we get a non-title match between the AEW World Champion Jon Moxley and Frankie Kazarian of SCU. Now obviously Moxley has the upper hand for most of this match because he's the champion, he's got to look strong, hasn't he? But also, Kazarian is holding his own and showing a lot of grit and a lot of the determination that SCU have kind of become renowned for in AEW. In fact, one of the more memorable moments of the match was Kazarian on offense, because Moxley heads up to the second rope, leaps to the outside where Kazarian is, but is met with kind of a super kick, but kind of also a front kick right to the face, and that turns the tide of the match in Kazarian's favour. But slightly later on, Moxley avoids a Kazarian charge, Kazarian hits the corner, Moxley rolls him up, Kazarian rolls through to his feet, bang, paradigm shift instantly, 1, 2, 3, and Jon Moxley picks up the win. But it's not over yet, as Moxley is then jumped by several members of the Dark Order. Daniels and Scorpio Sky come out to try and help the babyfaces, but they get beaten down. The Dark Order are just beating down everybody, and here comes Mr. Brodie Lee out onto the stage with a steel chair. Daniels rushes at him and takes what looks like, although the camera slightly misses it, but looks like a very nasty chair shot, maybe even hit him in the head. Brodie Lee gets in the ring, discus lariat to Jon Moxley, and now he's on the mic and he has something to say. Brodie says that there's no crowd now to raise Moxley, there's no fans for him to feed off. The energy that he feels now is the Dark Order. He says, Moxley, I am not the same person that you once knew a few years ago, obviously referring to their time as members of the WWE roster. And then he says, I don't even know who you are anymore. Are you an MMA fighter? Are you a movie star now? Or are you some scared little fatherless boy from Cincinnati? Brodie issues a challenge for the AEW World Championship. He says that Moxley's got what he wants, and Moxley crawls over to the mic, picks it up, and like a brave, defiant action hero like John McClane in Die Hard, he goes, all you gotta do is ask. But Brodie doesn't like this, so he doesn't like Moxley's cheek, I suppose. He does like that he's accepted his challenge, but he just boots him in the face and walks off, I think, with the title belt. This gets a B+ grade. The match was decent. The promo wasn't Brodie Lee's best. It wasn't the best I've ever seen him on the mic. There were a little few stumbles here and there, but the general message was a good one, and I really do like the booking decision of having Brodie Lee as the next big challenger for Moxley's title. Next up, we get a pre-recorded video from Brandy Rhodes. She cuts a promo on Jake the Snake Roberts. He's been cutting all these sinister promos, name dropping not only Cody, but Dustin, and of course Brandy as well. So she responds, she says, I know what you're doing here, Jake. I know what's meant to happen. You and Lance are going to corner me at some point, and I'm going to be the damsel in distress, and then Cody's going to rush to save me, and then he'll walk right into your trap. But Brandy sees this, she knows this, and she says, that's not what's going to happen at all. It's not 1991 anymore, and if you hit me in the face, I'll hit you right back. And then we go to the match, Lance Archer, accompanied by Jake the Snake Roberts, versus QT Marshall. So Brandy was kind of right. Jake is going to try something with her. Cody's not going to be there to save her though. Archer, of course, just absolutely decks somebody in the front row on the babyface side of things when he makes his entrance, and he's just dominating QT Marshall. QT gets a few little hope spots, but mostly this is just absolute domination by the TNT tournament finalist. On the outside of the ring at one point, when QT's being beaten down against the guardrail, Britt Baker does what she's been doing a little bit recently and just bops him on the head with her shoe. So Brandy straight over there takes the shoe off Britt Baker and just launches it up into the stands, and that could possibly be setting up a feud for later on. It could also just be setting up what happens next. Back in the ring, Lance Archer blasts QT Marshall with the blackout. It only gets 2, but then he locks on that claw, rams QT's head into the canvas a few times, and that's enough for the victory. But it's not over yet, as Britt Baker drops Brandy on the outside with a DDT and rolls her into the ring, and suddenly Brandy is at the mercy of Archer and Jake the Snake. And Jake the Snake goes classic Jake the Snake, gets an actual snake and lays it on Brandy's prone body. It's uncomfortable, deliberately uncomfortable, But yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. This may have worked back in the day. I don't know if it worked quite as well as they were hoping. The snake didn't seem particularly vicious. It was just kind of chilling on Brandy's body. But I mean, it was effective, I suppose, and it was a shot of nostalgia for old fans of Jake. Then again, I've seen some stuff online. Apparently at one point he accidentally trod on the snake. He pretended to throw it into the front row at one point and then, faked them out. And I don't know enough about animal cruelty to know whether this is cruel behavior or not. So I'm not going to comment on it. I'm just going to leave that to, people who know more than me. I'm not really sure what grade to give this. I think I'll give it a B+, but I was hesitant to do that because I don't think the snake worked quite as well as they were hoping. However, when it comes to AEW, they are often good at just putting little steps in a storyline that help it all the way to the big blow-off match. The big blow-off match in this case, of course, being Cody versus Lance Archer in the tournament final. So I think it was all right for what it was trying to do. But then again, I don't really know. This segment was really difficult to grade. Next up, we get a segment that was too short to give a grade to, really, but I'll mention it anyway. Taz is backstage with a visibly annoyed Darby Allin, who's still annoyed about being knocked out of the tournament by Cody. Taz is like, well, you gave a good effort, Darby, but you did pin yourself in that match, which was a bit weird, wasn't it? And Darby's just like, Taz is going, you know what, I'll coach you, I'll give you help, I'll help you improve in the ring. And Darby just storms off, and I'm thinking, that's not a very wise decision, Darby. Cody's got Arn Anderson, Sean Spears has got Tully Blanchard. You could have Taz, the human suplex machine, and you've turned him down. I have to really question these tactics from Darby Allin. How is he ever going to expect to improve and possibly even become AEW World Champion one day if he's going to turn down advice from Taz himself? Pathetic. And finally, the main event, the street fight. Oh my God, what a match. The street fight between Kenny Omega and Matt Hardy on one side and Inner Circle members Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, aka Les Ex Gods, on the other side. During the heels entrance, Pineapple P, as they know him, takes a swing at Jericho on the outside and they exchange words. His name is Shug D, or Sugar Dunkerton if you prefer. His name is Shug D. His name is Shug D. His name is Robert Paulson. No, whoa. I feel like a teenager again. Okay, bear with me, because just so much stuff happened in this match. So much hype stuff as well, guys. So we start off with a nice little tribute to the Hardy Boys as Omega and Matt Hardy do a little bit of a poetry emotion variation. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be all right. It's going to be a fairly crowd-pleasing match. Little did I know what was going to happen next. Matt Hardy is taken out of the equation for a little bit. Jericho beats him down the entrance ramp, down one of the tunnels, and leaves him there. And it's 2-on-1 on Omega in the ring. But then Matt Hardy returns in his lovely blue, velvety, slightly velvety looking, I guess. I don't know, his blue t-shirt. He looks like Matt Hardy of old. He looks like a Hardy boy. And he's hitting side effects. He's nailing twists of fate. And I'm thinking, it's going all right. Not much substance here, but it's going okay. Things are about to get crazy. They get a ladder involved, they get a table involved, and Matt Hardy splashes Sammy Guevara off the ladder through a table, 1, 2, and with expert timing, Jake Hager pulls the referee out. No Papa Shango at WrestleMania 8 here. Jake Hager was on the ball. The heels take control once again, this time obviously because they've got a 3-on-2 advantage, and the action spills out of the arena into the sort of concourse area, and this is where things get so silly, but so fun as well. I'm gonna have to consult my laptop because there was just so many excellent parts going on here. They brought out of the arena, Matt tries to shove Jericho into an ice box, but he comes out with a giant block of ice and hurls it at Matt Hardy and it breaks and sort of lands on his shoulder, and it's amazing. That, for some reason, there's so much weird stuff going on here, but this one, the ice block, Jericho using a giant block of ice as a weapon, really tickled me. I was laughing for a long time after that happened. I don't know whether it's like the way he picked it up, like, it was just something about it that really just hit a nerve, and I couldn't stop laughing. Jericho turns the tide and locks Matt Hardy in the icebox. Now it's 3-on-1 against Kenny Omega. He gets whipped by Sammy Guevara into an ATM machine, or a cash point, as we call it here in the UK, which I think is a cooler sounding name. He gets whipped into the ATM machine and money comes out, because this is literally Saints Row, the wrestling match. Just as things are looking bleak for Kenny Omega, Matt Hardy emerges from the icebox. He's done another costume change. He is now his current form, Damascus as we're calling him. He's broken Matt Hardy in the red and the black. He gets into a golf cart, which is handily nearby. After some difficulty, manages to turn it on and get it in gear, and drives it down the concourse and kind of clips Jericho. Jericho doesn't take the brunt of the blow, but he kind of clips him, and Jericho spins off to the side, and it's just It's all about a kickoff. Like something from an action movie, Matt Hardy offers Kenny a hand and Kenny takes it and he pulls him into the golf cart and it's like, let's ride. And then they don't say let's ride. You know what? They might have done. There's so much stuff going on. They drive the golf cart and chase down Sammy Guevara, who does the best comedic running away from a vehicle I have ever seen in, I think, any form of entertainment ever. The golf cart catches up with Sammy, he turns and takes, again, maybe the best bump I've ever seen off a vehicle in any form of entertainment ever. He jumps just to the point of contact and just spins off the golf cart. It totally cleans him out. It looks devastating, but it's so good. It's so good. I'm sure you've seen GIFs of it on Twitter by now. It's so good. Second to the giant block of ice for me, obviously. What happens next? Bloody hell. Okay, so Kenny climbs a scissor lift or a cherry picker. Oh, my eyes are watering. Not from laughing, just from the excitement. Kenny gets up and the scissor lift extends. Obviously, Jericho's been laid on a table below. Kenny's looking to put him through the table. But, you know, Hager rescues Jericho from the table. So Kenny just decides to get up on the cherry picker and moonsault off onto all three men below him. Just because, anyway. It looks brutal. Never have I quite seen Kenny Omega go so full Ibushi mode as he did there. And I actually tweeted last night, I enjoyed DDT last night. That was a little joke because this match was a little bit like DDT's wild, crazy brawls that happen outside of a traditional wrestling environment. And then Omega tweeted it as well. So everyone paid attention to his tweet, obviously, because he's Kenny Omega. And I'm not saying he stole the tweet. It wasn't the most original thought I've ever had. I'm just saying that I'm a bit sad because I lost likes and retweets because of that. So therefore, I'm delighted to report that Omega lost the match. Haha, Kenny. Santana and Ortiz arrive, they turn the tide, it's now 5-on-2. Matt Hardy gets powerbombed through a table, Kenny gets powerbombed on top of the golf cart and then falls victim to the Judas effect back elbow, and the Inner Circle pick up the win. And just to round things off, the Inner Circle all pose in victory, giving the middle finger to the camera, and you can see the Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium in the background, and they've rigged it so that the big screen in the Jaguars Stadium lights up, saying Inner Circle with their graphic on it. It's so funny. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. Okay, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest when it comes to grading this. It wasn't perfect. It didn't really kick into a higher gear until they headed out of the arena. And the heels only won because there was more of them. You know, they were going to win anyway because there's so many of them. It just turns out they took a while to all get involved. So you could argue that the structure of the match wasn't that perfect, but that doesn't matter because the most important thing about this match was the action and the cartoonishness and the silliness, and it was just brilliant. It reminded me quite a lot of that little concourse brawl we got on an early episode of Dynamite when Cody and his boys punched the glass and attacked the Inner Circle and everything spilled into the concourse. It reminded me of that, but extended and on a wider level and with more set-piece moments and more weapons coming into play. Like, for example, a bloody block of ice. Words cannot describe how much I love that moment. And that older episode of Dynamite remains maybe my favorite episode of Dynamite of all time so far. Maybe, it's certainly in my top like 3 or something. So this was really good. This really resonated with me. I'm gonna give it an A grade. It was sloppy in parts, it was stupid, but that was all part of its charm and it was executed remarkably well by all 4 men involved. So it gets a lovely A grade, but what is my overall grade for this week's episode of Dynamite? Well, I think I'm going to give it an A-, you know, and a lot of that is to do with that just epic main event, but it was a really ambitious show. I mean, we got a new challenger set up for Moxley's AEW World Championship, we got, you know, the snake spot with Jake, however effective that may have been, and we got that wonderful main event. So I think that, you know, AEW really swung for the fences in this one, and sometimes they connected. You know, not everything was 100% a success, but the ambition of the show and the scale of the show was certainly there. A- is the grade for this week's Dynamite. It was good stuff, not a perfect show, but man, they tried, and you have to respect that as a fan. Thanks very much for watching. That is it for this week's AEW Dynamite Graded. Let me know what you thought of the show in the comment section down below, and let me know what your favourite spot was from that wonderful, wonderful backstage brawl. Oh, I feel so alive. Anyway, gonna calm down now, probably have a cup of tea. See you soon.